I'm Lily, 36 years old, a proud HVAC business owner and the sister who paid Emma's college tuition in full. But this Thanksgiving she laughed in front of her wealthy friends and called me just the AC tech before asking me to leave. So I gave her exactly what she earned. No more tuition and no more silence. Stick around, this family dinner? It changed everything. They say tragedy doesn't change you, it reveals you. And that couldn't have been more true than the day I stood in front of two coffins, holding the hand of a 14-year-old girl who had no idea how much her world, and mine, had just unraveled. My name's Lily. I was born and raised in a blue-collar Ohio town, where grit came before glamour, and folks measured your worth by the dirt under your nails, not the degrees on your wall. My dad, Robert, was a plumber, sturdy, sunburned, and honest. My mom, Susan, was an elementary school teacher who could stretch a dollar and make it sing. We weren't rich, but we never felt poor. My little sister Emma was different from the start, sharp, bookish, head always somewhere else. While I rebuilt carburetors and fixed leaky pipes, she was winning spelling bees and dreaming about Ivy League dorms. She used to tilt her head at me and ask, "Don't you want to do something important with your life?" And I'd smile, wipe my hands on a rag, and keep on fixing what was broken. Then, 5 years ago, our parents didn't make it home from their anniversary dinner. Just like that, I became a 31-year-old legal guardian, business owner, and stand-in parent to a teenager who thought I was beneath her. I had started my own HVAC company by then, Thompson Heating and Air, named after our mother's maiden name, employing 7 people, pulling in 6 figures, and quietly holding our family together. Emma never saw that. All she saw was a sister in work boots, not a provider, not a builder, not enough. But I knew better, and eventually she would too. Clara never sugar-coated her thoughts. That was one of the things I loved most about her. During one of our weekly coffee catch-ups, her sipping a frothy cappuccino, I nursing a long overdue espresso, she leaned back in her chair and said, "You know, Lily, I don't get why you let Emma treat you like some kind of second-class citizen. She wasn't wrong. You're paying for her entire life," she continued, "and she acts like your job's beneath her, as if she'd survive a week without you keeping the bills paid." Daniel, my boyfriend and fellow tradesperson, construction site manager by title, proud of every callus on his hands, agreed wholeheartedly. "There's real dignity in what we do," he'd tell me. "What's not dignified is pretending you're better than the people who keep the heat on when winter hits." And still, I'd defend Emma. She's young, I'd say. She's still grieving. The world she lives in now is different. She's trying to find her way. But deep down, I think I knew. I'd been making excuses for too long. And the girl I once tucked in at night, the same one who used to brag to her friends that her big sister could fix anything, was slowly slipping away into someone else entirely. When she got accepted to Westmore University, $56,000, 0 cents a year, not including books, food, or that ridiculous wellness fee, I didn't even blink. I'd saved, scrimped, and worked overtime for years just to be able to say what I said the day her letter arrived. "You got in, and I've got you. Don't worry about the cost." She cried when I said that, hugged me like the little girl she used to be. But somewhere between her dorm move-in day and midterms, Emma's calls started to shift. She still shared her excitement about classes, majored in international business, minored in French. But there were new names peppered into every story. Names like Lisa, whose dad was a Fortune 500 CFO, Sophia, whose mom performed brain surgery, and Charles, whose parents didn't just live, they summered. I tried not to read into it, but I felt the space growing, the subtle dig behind every comment, the slow, quiet erosion of respect. And then came Charles. Charles Prescott, with his golden hair, his Harvard-bound future, and his parents who had never once used the word trade without curling their lips around it like it tasted bad. The moment Emma met him, I knew something in our dynamic shifted for good. His family invited me to their estate for Thanksgiving, she told me one November afternoon, letting the word estate linger a little too long on her tongue. "That sounds sore special," I said, swallowing my disappointment. Since our parents passed, Thanksgiving had always been our thing, just the two of us, eating too much pie and watching old holiday movies. She paused. "I still want to see you, though. I'm throwing a small dinner at my apartment for Charles and some of his friends. Pre-Thanksgiving, nothing formal. Would you come?" I blinked, surprised by the invitation. "I'd love to," I said, already imagining bringing one of my favorite casseroles. "Need help with the food?" She hesitated, just for a second, but then said, "Yeah, actually, that'd be great. Charles's friends are kind of particular." There it was, a warning, one I ignored because I was so desperate to be included. Looking back, I should have known that dinner would be the moment everything broke wide open. The day before the dinner, I pulled into the parking lot of the off-campus apartment Emma lived in, One of those polished, pristine complexes with stainless steel appliances and manicured walkways. It was a 2-bedroom I paid for, the rent deducted automatically from my account each month, without question. I stepped out of my Civic, arms full of grocery bags, and was met at the door by Emma. She didn't greet me so much as scan the parking lot. "Where's your truck?" she asked, eyes darting past my shoulder. "I drove my Civic," I replied. She relaxed slightly. "Good. Come in quickly before anyone sees you." That was my first warning. Inside, Emma's apartment was decked out like a page from a lifestyle blog. Fresh hydrangeas in a vase, elegant dinnerware I didn't recognize, a bottle of vintage wine sweating in an ice bucket. It was beautiful, but not warm. Not us. "You didn't have to go all out," I said gently, trying to compliment without implying judgment. "It's important to make a good impression," Emma replied, taking the bags from my hands. "Charles's friends are connected. Some already have post-grad offers at major firms." As we unpacked groceries, she started peppering me with little comments that felt more like choreography, a preemptive PR sweep. "When they ask what you do, maybe just say you run a business," she suggested. "No need to get into the whole HVAC part." I turned toward her, slowly. "I'm not ashamed of my work, Emma. I built something real, something that puts food on our table, your table." I know," she muttered, brushing it off. "It's just, these people might not get it." It wasn't the first time. Freshman year I visited during Parents' Weekend, she introduced me as being in building services. When someone asked for details, she quickly pivoted to talk about her roommate's dad, who was a senior partner at a law firm in Boston. We kept cooking. I tried to keep my heart in it. Then my phone rang. "Thompson HVAC, this is Lily," I answered instinctively. Sophie, my office manager, sounded apologetic. "Lily, sorry to bother you. Riverside Medical Center's OR unit is down. Backup's failing. They've got surgeries scheduled." An operating room without AC, that wasn't just inconvenient, that was dangerous? "I'll be there in 30, I said, already wiping my hands and grabbing my keys. Emma looked up from the cutting board, panic blooming on her face. "Now? But the guests!" "I'll be back in time," I promised. "Everything's prepped." "But it's a hospital, Emma." Her silence said everything. She didn't say thank you, didn't say be careful, just turned back to her vegetables with tight shoulders and tighter lips. I made it back just under 2 hours later, uniform still on, boots dusty, hair pulled back from sweat. No time to change. I knocked on the door, still catching my breath, and opened it and froze. "You couldn't change first?" she hissed. "I didn't want to be late," I said. "I came back to help." "Just go to my room. Put on literally anything else." So I changed into jeans and a sweater from my emergency overnight bag. I walked back into the kitchen, trying to brush off the sting. "Is this acceptable?" I asked. Emma didn't answer, just handed me a tray. "Help me with this." The guests arrived in clusters. Charles, of course, was first. Tall, sharp-edged, practiced. Then came 2 couples, Nathan and Olivia, Ethan and Sophia. They shook hands like executives, laughed in low, rehearsed tones, and sat like they'd done this their whole lives. At first I stayed quiet, but eventually one of them turned to me. "So, how do you know Emma?" Nathan asked, swirling his wine glass with perfect poise. "Lily's my sister," Emma chimed in before I could speak. "She's visiting from out of town." "Where from?" Olivia asked politely. "I live here in town," I answered. "I run a business." "Oh, what kind?" Sophia asked with genuine interest. I noticed Emma shift uncomfortably. "HVAC," I said. "Heating and cooling. Commercial systems mostly." Nathan arched an eyebrow. "So like, air conditioners?" "Yes," I replied calmly. "Including the surgical wing at the medical center across town." Sophia leaned forward. "That sounds important. My uncle had surgery last year and I never thought about the systems keeping those rooms stable." "Thank you," I said, touched by her interest. But Emma jumped in. "Charles, didn't your dad just get a new yacht?" The conversation veered into boats, Aspen ski trips, and Paris-trained chefs. I sat there quietly, feeling the air drain from my lungs. Then Emma spoke. "The Prescotts invited me to Thanksgiving at their estate this year," she announced proudly. "They're flying in a chef from Lyon." Sophia blinked. "But what about your usual Thanksgiving stuff? Don't you and Lily have traditions?" Emma laughed, tight and brittle. "Oh, nothing special, just the usual boring stuff." I felt my heart crack a little. The usual boring stuff was our dad's turkey jokes, Mom's cranberry sauce, the hand-cut place cards, the moment we all said what we were thankful for. "Actually," I began, voice low but steady, "our parents made Thanksgiving really special. It was—" "Lily!" Emma snapped. "No one wants to hear about all that old-fashioned stuff." The room went quiet. Even Charles looked taken aback. "I'd like to hear," Sophia said kindly. But Emma had already sprung to her feet. "Who wants coffee?" she chirped. In the kitchen I confronted her. "Why are you doing this? Why are you ashamed of me?" "I'm not ashamed," she snapped. "I'm trying to fit in. You wouldn't understand." "I understand perfectly," I said. "You don't want them to know who you are." "Who are we?" "That's not true." But she couldn't look me in the eye. "Please," she whispered, "don't talk about your work, or that you pay for my tuition." I stepped back like I'd been slapped. "Fine," I said. "I'll keep your secrets." But that night, I realized something irreversible. I wasn't just being excluded from Emma's life, I was being erased. And the storm wasn't just coming. It had already begun to thunder inside me. There's a kind of silence that settles in just before something breaks. Not the kind you hear in a peaceful kitchen or beneath a starlit porch, but the kind that lives in your chest, tight, waiting. That was the air around me the day of Emma's pre-Thanksgiving dinner. I showed up 2 hours early, a peace offering in one hand and grocery bags in the other. I'd even curled my hair, worn my best blouse, and polished my shoes. I was trying desperately to fit into a place my sister seemed determined to say I didn't belong. Emma opened the door and scanned me like a stylist judging fabric. "You look nice," she said. Praise if you squinted. I smiled anyway. "Thanks. I brought everything on your list, and Mom's cranberry sauce recipe if you want to." "I already bought some," she interrupted. "From that gourmet place Charles likes." I swallowed my disappointment. "Maybe we could make both?" She didn't answer, just turned on her heel and headed to the kitchen, where a small army of appetizers was already in progress. Imported cheeses, delicate crackers, cured meats rolled like scrolls. Emma moved around the space like she was auditioning for the Food Network. The air smelled of rosemary and pressure. "This is a lot," I murmured, unpacking my groceries. "It has to be perfect," she said, wiping her hands. "Charles's family believes in setting a standard." The way she said family made it sound like ours had never existed. I didn't say anything. I just peeled carrots and tried not to let my heart show. Guests started arriving around 6. Charles led the parade, his cologne strong, his smile polite. Behind him came Nathan and Olivia, Ethan and Sophia, and 2 new faces, Lucas and Isabella, all polished, poised, and curated like LinkedIn profiles brought to life. From the start, I felt like wallpaper, present but not seen. They talked about yachting in Greece, semester abroad investments, and job offers they hadn't even applied for. I nodded along, mostly quiet, mostly invisible, until one of them, Nathan I think, turned to me with a glass of red wine and asked, "So, how do you know Emma?" I opened my mouth, but Emma got there first. "She's my sister." "She's just visiting?" "Visiting." I blinked. "Not," she raised me. "No, she pays for this apartment and half the wine you're drinking. Just visiting." Like I'd wandered in from the cold and brought a pie. The rest of the night passed like a bruise forming. Slow spreading pain under the skin of civility. At dinner, Emma took every compliment with a smile that wasn't earned alone. The roast I seasoned? Hers. The appetizers I plated? Hers. The family recipes I tried to bring to the table? Unspoken, erased. And then it happened. Charles, ever the golden boy, turned to me mid-meal. "Emma says you didn't go to college. Was that a choice, or?" His voice trailed off, but the implication hovered like a wasp. I straightened. "I went to vocational school." "HVAC certification? I own a company now?" Nathan coughed into his glass. "Air conditioning?" "Yes," I said. "We do commercial systems. Operating rooms, schools, and government contracts. It's not glamorous, but it pays 7 figures." They blinked. Olivia smiled awkwardly. Sophia leaned in, genuinely intrigued. But Emma? Emma's face twisted like someone had spilled cheap soda on her silk dress. And then Lucas asked the question that lit the match. "So is that like a family trade?" "Our dad was a plumber," I began. Emma cut me off. "No one wants to hear about that," she snapped. "God, Lily, why do you always do this?" The room froze. She stood up, red-faced, trembling. "You're just an AC tech. Stop pretending that's something special. You don't belong here. These people don't care about thermostats and tool belts. You're embarrassing me. Just go." I didn't move, not at first. Her words hung in the air, hot and heavy like July heat with no breeze. "Emma?" Charles whispered, horrified. But she wasn't done. "I worked so hard to build a life beyond all that, and you show up in your jumpsuit talking about ductwork like it's high art. You're not part of this world, Lily, please. Just leave." There are moments when you don't realize you've been bleeding until someone points at the wound. That was mine. I set down my napkin, slow and steady. "Thank you for the dinner," I said quietly, "and for reminding me what matters." I looked around that table, so polished, so perfect. and felt none of it. Without another word, I rose and walked out. I didn't slam the door. I didn't cry. I walked. Because when someone spends years trying to edit you out of your own story, sometimes the boldest thing you can do is write a new chapter without them. Outside, the air was cold and clean, and for the first time in years, I could breathe. The drive home passed in a blur of tears and disbelief. I couldn't reconcile the sister I'd raised with the young woman who had just humiliated me in front of her friends. As soon as I pulled into my driveway, I called Clara. "Can you come over?" I asked, my voice breaking. Something happened with Emma. 20 minutes later, Clara was at my door with a bottle of wine and a sympathetic ear. We sat on my couch as I recounted the entire painful evening. "She said that to you after everything you've done for her?" Clara was incredulous. "Lily, that's beyond ungrateful. That's cruel." "I keep thinking I must have done something to provoke her," I said, wiping away tears. "Maybe I embarrassed her somehow without realizing it." "Stop that right now," Clara said firmly. "You didn't do anything wrong. You were invited to dinner. You helped cook. You were polite to her stuck-up friends. She's the one who should be ashamed, not you." As the initial shock began to fade, anger started to take its place. I thought about all I had sacrificed for Emma over the years, especially since our parents died. "Do you know how many extra jobs I took on to afford her tuition?" I said, pacing my living room. "How many weekends and holidays did I work while she was enjoying spring breaks in Cancun and winter ski trips with friends?" "You've given up a lot," Clara agreed. "When Mom and Dad died, I could have used that insurance money for myself," I continued. "I could have expanded my business faster, bought a bigger house, and taken actual vacations. Instead, I put every penny into a college fund for Emma because that's what they would have wanted. And she doesn't even appreciate it." Not. I sank back onto the couch, suddenly exhausted. "You know what the worst part is? She's ashamed of me, but she's not ashamed to spend my money, the money I make from being just an AC tech." Clara was quiet for a moment. "Have you ever calculated exactly how much you've spent on her education and living expenses?" I hadn't. Not in precise terms. While Clara poured us each another glass of wine, I pulled out my laptop and opened my financial records. For the next hour, we went through bank statements, tuition payments, rent transfers, and credit card bills. $123,000, 0 cents, I finally said, staring at the spreadsheet in disbelief. "That's how much I've spent on Emma's education and expenses in the last year and a half. And that doesn't even count all the things you can't put a price on," Clara added. "The time, the emotional support, and the sacrifice of your own goals." I nodded, feeling a strange mix of shock and clarity. "I've been enabling her behavior, haven't I? I keep making excuses for her, just like I did when she was younger." "You've been trying to be both sister and parent," Clara said gently. "It's an impossible position." My phone buzzed with a text message from Emma. "You overreacted. You embarrassed me in front of Charles. Why couldn't you just play along for one night?" No apology, no acknowledgement of how hurtful her words had been. Just blame. I showed the message to Clara, who shook her head in disbelief. "She still doesn't get it." "No," I agreed. "She does." I didn't respond to the text, and Emma didn't send another one that night. Clara stayed over, sleeping in my guest room, because she was worried about me. In the morning, I woke up, hoping that perhaps Emma had reflected overnight and would call with an apology. My phone remained silent. 3 days passed without any contact from my sister. No call, no text, no email. I went through the motions at work, trying to focus on the business I'd built from the ground up. The business was apparently so embarrassing to my sister. On the third day, Daniel came over for dinner. I hadn't told him about the incident yet, wanting to process it myself first. "You seemed distracted," he observed as we ate. "Is everything okay?" I took a deep breath and told him everything. Unlike Clara's immediate indignation, Daniel listened quietly, his expression growing more serious as I related the dinner party disaster. "What are you going to do?" he asked when I finished. "I don't know," I admitted. "Part of me wants to call her and demand an apology. Another part never wants to speak to her again." "What about her tuition?" Daniel asked carefully. "The next semester payment is coming up soon, isn't it?" I nodded. Westmore University operated on a semester system, and the spring semester payment of $28,000, 0 cents, was due in 3 weeks. "I haven't decided about that yet," I said, though the thought had been lurking in the back of my mind since the dinner party. "Lily," Daniel said gently, "I know you promised your parents you'd take care of Emma, but at some point you have to ask yourself, if you're helping her by funding this lifestyle where she looks down on the very person making it possible." That night, after Daniel left, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about his words and the decision looming before me. Was I truly helping Emma by continuing to fund her education when she showed such contempt for me and the work that made it possible? The next morning, I logged into my social media accounts and saw that Emma had posted photos from the Thanksgiving dinner at Charles's family estate. The images showed her smiling alongside the Prescott family in their elegant dining room, raising glasses of champagne in a toast. Her caption read, "So grateful to spend Thanksgiving with my real family. Some people just understand class and ambition." The words felt like a direct jab at me, real family. As if our parents and our shared history meant nothing, as if my sacrifices for her were worthless. That afternoon, I received an automated email reminder from Westmore University about the upcoming tuition payment. The message was addressed to me, since I was the one who had been making the payments, not Emma. Sitting at my desk staring at the email with its polite reminder of the $28,000 due date, I made my decision. It wasn't a choice made in anger, though I certainly felt hurt and betrayed. It was a recognition that our relationship had become unhealthy, and that continuing to financially support Emma while she disparaged me was not doing either of us any favors. I opened my banking app and looked at the college fund account I had established for Emma. There was currently $84,000 in it, enough for the upcoming semester, plus the next 2 after that. With steady hands, I initiated a transfer of the entire amount back to my business account. The confirmation screen asked if I was sure I wanted to proceed with the transfer. I paused, giving myself one last chance to reconsider. Then I clicked confirm. It was done. For the first time since our parents died, Emma would need to take responsibility for her education and expenses. The thought was both terrifying and liberating. I didn't call to tell her. Part of me wanted her to receive the notification from the university that her tuition payment had not been received, to experience that moment of realization on her own. It wasn't about revenge. It was about finally allowing her to face the consequences of her actions and attitudes. That night, I wrote in my journal, trying to process the complex emotions swirling inside me. Guilt mingled with resolve, sadness with a strange sense of freedom. I had spent so many years defining myself by my responsibility to Emma, that stepping back from that role left me feeling both unmoored and unburdened. "I hope I'm doing the right thing," I wrote. "Mom, Dad, I've tried my best to give her everything you would have wanted for her, but I can't keep sacrificing my self-respect. I can't keep funding her disdain for me and everything we came from. Maybe this will be the wake-up call she needs, or maybe it will be the final break between us. Either way, I have to believe that you would understand." I closed the journal and went to bed, sleeping better than I had in days. The decision was made. Now I just had to wait for the fallout. If this story moved you, or reminded you of a time you had to make a hard choice for someone you love, I'd love to hear about it in the comments below. Whether it's about setting boundaries, standing up for yourself, or finding your way back to someone you care about, your story matters here. And if you found meaning in this journey of love, loss, and reconciliation, don't forget to check out the other videos on this channel. We tell real stories that speak to the heart and remind us what family, respect, and second chances truly mean. Subscribe so you never miss another moment like this, and if you found this story powerful, hit that like button and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.